Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Hello everyone, Carrie here, and I have in my hands the new Davion Cavalry Lance Force Pack. This Force Pack contains mechs representing 4 eras of BattleTech and is the first one that I have run into that, well, doesn't make me want it for just 1 or 2 units. From the Clan Invasion, we have the resculpted ENF 5D Enforcer. From the Civil War era, we get the Hellspawn, the Legionnaire from the Blakist era, and the Gunsmith from the Dark Ages. This is interesting as we have what is a slice of Federated Suns cavalry mech development going from its response to the clans through the savagery of a civil war and the desperation of being beset on all sides by the word of Blake, and finally how it evolved in the aftermath as the HPG network fell. So, let's take a look. Now, before we jump into the Force Pack, I want to remind you to hit that like and subscribe button, and hit the bell to get notifications on new videos as they come out. If you want to support the channel, go to our Patreon at patreon.com/unicorncompany, where you can get ad-free videos and updates on projects that I am working on, like the Savannah Master Rocket League and the Technical Readout Battle Technology project for as little as $1 a month. Now, let's get into this Force Pack. The Davion Force Pack is one that was soft announced last year at Adepticon, which you can see in my video about them linked in the top corner. This one is one of the ones, a lot of ones. Anyway, this one is one of the ones that I most highly anticipated, and it delivers so well. Like I said in the intro, there are usually 1 or 2 mechs I see in a Force Pack, and the rest are just icing on the cake. In this case, though, I find myself excited for the whole thing, which I admit is a rarity. The mechs here are spectacular and not only give us a different enforcer, but also give us a bunch of highly effective and fun Davion machines, which reflect the design ethos and combat doctrine of the Davion military through the ages, and definitely give us a Force Pack that feels incredibly well focused on the faction it is representing. The first of these mechs is the Enforcer. This is one of the 2 poster boys of House Davion medium mechs alongside the Centurion, and is one that saw its initial glow up in the Inner Sphere Urban Lance and has also made an appearance in the Hanson's Rough Riders Battle Lance, which had a very FedCom Force Pack feel to it. Personally, if I had to choose a mech for this position in this Force Pack, I think I would have been more inclined to include the Centurion CN9-D5 with its rotary autocannon goodness, but I'm not part of the development team for Catalyst, though if they're ever looking, I'm cheap. Looking at the Enforcer though, overall it is a really good miniature, and one of the 2 largest mechs in the Force Pack. On closer inspection from the front, the Mini looks pretty good, with a mold line on the top and bottom of the mech's right arm weapons housing, and a very faint one on the top of the mech's left forearm. We have the regular burring on the outside edge of the muzzles of the autocannon and laser, and where I start to have some issues is the mold line on the upper leg that extends to the top of it, as it is on the center line of the leg and starts on a flat surface where it's easy to remove, and then extends up onto the top of the leg, running over a bumpy surface as it starts to go to the back. The part on the flat surface will be very easy to remove. I wish, though, they had found a way to get that mold line to transfer over to the inside edge of the leg where it goes from flat to the surface that has the small details running along the top. In that area, it is going to be harder to remove, even if it is in a hard to see place where the majority of players probably won't notice it as it isn't very pronounced. From the Enforcer's left side, everything looks really clean with one exception. Tilting the machine towards me, I can see a mold line that runs across the head from the mech's left to right. To be fair, I couldn't see it from the front and don't know if it's due to my lighting or just how it sits. The mold line should be very easy to remove, and I'm not going to dwell on it. As we get to the rear, I can see a mold line on the rear of each arm along the center line, and leaning it forward, I can see the clip point on the bottom of each arm. Overall, they shouldn't be too hard to get rid of, with the only spot where it will be a tiny bit more complex being the spot where it crosses over the elbow panel with the small detail that sticks up. The leg mold lines on each leg are more visible here as they go over the washboard surface at the top of the legs and then onto a flat surface before finally disappearing into the very detailed back of the upper legs and lower legs, being hidden in the corners to make the corners a bit more defined. Finally, we get over to the mech's right side where we once again have a very clean sculpt. Overall, this is a very good design and is done really well. The mech is highly detailed with nothing that looks muddy or undefined, with my only gripe being how they handled the mold lines running over the top of the legs. As far as the Alpha Strike cards, we get the ENF-5D Enforcer and the ENF-5R. The 5D Enforcer is a battle mech size 2 with a TMM of 2 and 10 jump. The mech is a skirmisher that comes in at 27 points and is available from the clan invasion forward. The Enforcer 5D does 2 damage at every range, and has no overheat value. For protection, it has 5 armor and 2 structure with specials of Case and Flak 111. While not an overwhelming machine, it is a Davion Cavalry trooper that gets the job done, even if that job is being a speed bump until the heavier mechs can get into play. The other side of the card gives us the ENF-5R Enforcer. This mech is a battle mech size 2 with a TMM of 1 and movement of 8 jump. It's a brawler that costs 24 points and is available from the Dark Ages forward. The 5R does 2 damage at short and medium ranges with 1 at long and no overheat value. It has 5 armor and 3 structure with specials of Case 2, Flak 111, and re-engineered laser. While not throwing a lot of firepower, this is something of a toolbox design, giving you an affordable anti-air mech with an extra bit of durability and the ability to counter light and medium units, which use reflective armor. Overall, not bad. Not great, but not bad. Now, the next mech we're looking at is the Hellspawn. The Hellspawn has its genesis in MechWarrior 4 and in technical readout 3067. The Hellspawn was envisioned as a lighter and more mobile replacement for the Dervish, carrying 2 LRM-10 launchers, 1 in each side torso, and 3 medium pulse lasers, 1 in each arm and 1 in the mech's right torso. The overall look of the Hellspawn feels like it takes its visual cues from much heavier clan designs like the Thor and Loki, with its almost omnipod-like appearance. The mech would also mount an ECM suite, something which would come in handy when the Word of Blake would unleash their wrath on the Inner Sphere only a few short years after the hellfire of the Civil War which spawned this machine. Visually, the new Hellspawn retains many of the visual cues from the original art for the design, with it feeling like a much-needed and well-thought-out update to the design. I do like that they chose to remove the massive flip-up missile door that dominated the mech's left torso, though if someone really wanted to maintain that look, it wouldn't be too hard to either build it out of plasticard or create a door or set of doors, which could be mounted to the torso through 3D printing that could be open or closed. Looking at the miniature from the front, the only mold lines that look like they stick out to me are the ones on the lower arms of the mech on the top and bottom. The leg mold lines look like they've been hidden in the details, and the front of the mech's right arm, under the shoulder-mounted missile launcher, looks like it could use a little bit of cleanup. You can also see the clip points on the bottom of the arms, but they aren't going to be hard to remove. Going over to the mech's right side, everything looks super clean. I can see a hint of where they hid the mold lines in the corners of the mech's parts, looking like they were used to create more crisp corners and giving me some burring on the front of the right arm weapons housing. The back of the mech looks good enough. I say this as there are a couple things that stand out or have a lack of standing out to me. The top of each leg has a clip point, though they are in an awkward spot where they do obscure some of the armor panel details, and the rear details on the torso feel underdefined. I'm guessing a lot of that has to do with the casting process and its limitations. The same can be said for the part of the arm that goes between the shoulder and lower arm, where it has details but feels just a little bit underdefined for my tastes. Going over the mech's right side, it looks good again, without anything that really sticks out to me as an issue. Overall, I like what they have done with the Hellspawn. It looks good and translates well from the original design, and gives me a feeling like it has just stepped out of the computer screen from MechWarrior 4 and onto the tabletop. And that makes my inner nerd very happy. Let's look at the Alpha Strike cards for this. First, we have the Fedcom Civil War Classic, the HSN-7D Hellspawn. The 7D is a battle mech size 2 with a TMM of 2 and movement of 12 jump. It is a missile boat with a points cost of 31 and is available from the Fedcom Civil War forward. The mech does 3 damage at short and medium ranges with 2 at long and has an overheat of 1. For protection from pesky Steiner supporters, it has 3 armor with 2 structure and specials of ECM, Indirect Fire 1, and LRM 111. For 31 points, this is a good trooper with decent firepower and movement, even if it is a bit on the light side on armor, and has the ability to act as a mobile fire support element in a pinch. The other side of the card is the HSN-10SR, which I needed to look up in Classic, because it makes my head hurt. If you play it in Classic, it is a mean little monster with 2 light PPCs, 2 ER medium lasers, jumps 8, and seems like it would be a terrifying little thing to deal with. In Alpha Strike, the 10SR Hellstar is a battle mech size 2 with a TMM of 2 and movement of 12 with 16 jump. The mech is a striker with a points cost of 39 and available in the Dark Age and Ill Clan era. The mech does 2 damage at short and medium ranges with no overheat value. It has outstanding armor of 5 and structure of 2 with specials of ECM, Energy, Jump Strong 1, Probe, Recon, and Tag. This makes it a very good harasser and artillery spotter that can maintain a very high TMM until it can get into a good position to strike its target. Now, we're halfway through the Force Pack, and I want to mention our sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games.com. Fortress has a wide variety of products for BattleTech, from terrain, force packs, individual miniatures, decals from Fighting Piranha Graphics, and so much more. So check out Fortress Miniatures and Games.com for all your BattleTech needs. Alright, so now we're on the back end of the Force Pack, and let's take a look at the next mech we have in the lineup, the Legionnaire. The ungainly and blocky mech that would come to be known as the Legionnaire has its roots in the Blakist era, when the Federated Suns was building anything it could on New Avalon to resist the word of Blake, and what they put together was what one could think of as the mech version of the A10, just safer and more effective, I guess. Building something that looks like an industrial mech wrapped around a rotary autocannon 5. The mech has its real-world origins in the MechWarrior Dark Age range, and was probably one of the better-looking early releases in the game, as opposed to, the spiky Atlas. That being said, it was still as ugly as a Pontiac Aztec, even though the concept was solid. The new look of the Legionnaire is still an ugly duckling, but it is one that is a bit more refined. While there isn't too much that can be done about the design of the arms and legs, they have been cleaned up quite a bit and look very good, and are far more proportional to the size that the mech is supposed to be than any other sculpt that we have had. The legs are also highly detailed, and while I normally go over the mech on each side, I am finding it hard to find anything that really stands out as far as a mold line. There are clip points on the underside of the arms with some burring on the hands, but that is typical of the castings. The 2 mold lines I can find are on the back of the mech's left arm, which is towards the top and might be a little bit of a bugbear to remove, as well as one on the front of the mech's right foot. They have been able to hide the majority of the mold lines in the corners in the many details of the mech. One big feature of the design is the PPC and rotary autocannon, which have a ridge that is used to line up the weapon to the body of the mech. The PPC does have a small mold line on its dorsal side that is easily removable, and the rotary autocannon has one on the dorsal side as well that you can't see but you can feel. One other thing I like about the design is how they have downplayed the smokestack-like heat sinks that were so prevalent throughout the Dark Age designs, as well as the autocannon ammunition feeds, which are now properly housed within the design, and look more like drum magazines mounted on the top of the mech, and look much more appropriate to the setting instead of the open autocannon ammunition feeds, which are more reminiscent of like Straken and his heavy bolter from Warhammer 40k. Now, personally, I'm going to mount the rotary autocannon on this because I love rotary autocannons, but that's beside the point. Let's look at the Alpha Strike card for the Legionnaire. Now, on one side, we have the LGN-2D. This is the rack-carrying machine that we all know and love. It's a battle mech size 2 with a TMM of 3 and movement of 14 inches. The mech is a striker with a point value of 39 that has been available from the Blakist era forward. The mech is a medium-ranged fighter with a short and medium of 3 with no long range or overheat value. The 2D model has armor of 5 and structure of 2 with no special abilities. This version of the Legionnaire would seem to be a bit overpriced as a trooper mech, though most of them don't have the ability to push a TMM of 3. The mech also has no case, but in the case of this mech, it only has 2 structure, and it isn't much of a liability, as if it does take structure damage to activate case from an ammunition explosion, it takes another damage anyway. So the only way that this would be effective is if it had case 2 or the energy special ability. Speaking of, on the other side, we have the Kurita variant of the mech, the LGN-2K. This version of the battle mech is a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 3 and a higher ground speed of 18 inches, with a jump of 14. The mech is a striker with a points cost of 37 that has been available since the Dark Age. The 2K Legionnaire does less damage at short and medium range, but consistently can do 2 damage at every range, with no overheat value though. The 2K has 5 armor and 2 structure with the special of energy, making it slightly more durable than that 2D variant. The Legionnaire, to be fair, hasn't given us a case 2 variant of the 2D yet, but there is the 2F, with reflective armor giving it a slightly more, it makes it more durable, with the same stats as the 2D, and the oddball 2XA with an Arrow 4 launcher, turning it into a highly mobile artillery support mech because it didn't get any slower. So the last mech in this lineup is the Gunsmith. The Gunsmith is a Davion mech that gives machines like the Dasher a run for its money for the title of Sneaky Backstabber. To be fair, the Federated Suns has seen a shift in the Dark Age with lighter, faster mechs. While one of them is the Prey Seeker, which in and of itself is very Dasher-like, the counterpoint to that is the Gunsmith. I don't have too much to say about the redesign of the mech, as it's pretty much a straightforward update of the original miniature, and the biggest thing that it takes care of is how much of a pain in the ass the mech was to put together and transport. I am definitely going to be looking into getting a second one of these for a possible Federated Suns force. I have ideas. Looking at the miniature itself, beginning at the front, it does have a couple of small mold lines on the top of the lower arms, as well as the bottom of them, quite easy to remove. The front of the legs, going up to the top of the mech, also has visible but what look like to be easily removable mold lines. There's a clip point on the bottom of the mech's arms as well. From the mech's right side, you can see a mold line on the top of the mech's right leg calf, which is sort of hidden from that front view. And on the front leading edge of both of the mech's feet, from the side, you can see a tiny bit of a mold line. The side otherwise looks pretty clean. From the rear, the mech has a clip point on the back of the top of the head, and there is one on the back of the mech's right leg, just to the left side above the mech's right foot, as far as a mold line, not a clip point. There is also a clip point on top of each leg that is definitely visible. From the mech's right side, there's obvious and visible burring on the ends of the Medium X pulse lasers in the arm. Overall, this miniature looks fantastic. The miniature is highly detailed and looks very good, with a few blemishes that look pretty easy to remove. The worst offender being that right arm Medium X pulse laser barrel assembly, which is going to be a little bit more of a pain to clean than the rest of it. But I definitely want to get my hands on a second Gunsmith, and might have to get an Iron Wind Metals one to do a side-by-side as my experience comes from assembling and painting them for other people. Now, onto the Alpha Strike card. This mech has a double-sided Alpha Strike card, which is identical on each side. Just the designation changes. So I will be covering both of them here. We have the CH11-NG and the CH-11 or CH11-NG-A gunsmiths. These are both identical, so I will be referring to them both as the Gunsmith. The Gunsmith is a battle mech size 1 with a TMM of 4 and movement of 26 inches. The mech is a striker with a points cost of 36 and is available from the Dark Age forward. For firepower, the Gunsmith does 3 damage at short and medium ranges with no long range damage or an overheat ability. For protection, the mech has 3 armor and 1 structure with the specials of reflective armor and energy. The energy ability is pretty pointless except for campaign play where, in theory, ammo can't explode, making the mech more likely to be salvageable. And the RF reflective armor, I typed RFA on my thing, but the reflective armor ability does make the mech a tiny bit more durable. Unless your opponent hits it with something that has the re-engineered laser special ability, and these two mechs are something that I do want to try out as a pair with a couple of Brace Seekers. Maybe like recreate that 5 Fingers of Death thing from the old 2750 TRO with the Hussars. So, what do I think about this force pack? Well, first of all, I love the selection of mechs that you get in here, as it's like a core sample of Davion Cavalry mechs. The other thing that I absolutely love is that, for the most part, these miniatures are beautiful. I did have to turn the Hellspawn slightly on its hex base, but otherwise, this force pack is very well done, and feels like a Davion force. The Davion Cavalry Lance Force Pack currently runs $29.99, but you can get it from our sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games, for $22.49. That price may or may not change because of certain political, economic things that are happening in our world right now, but as of this recording on the 22nd of March, you can pick this up for $22.49 at Fortress. And if you made it this far, I want to thank you for watching the whole video, and let me know what you think of this new force pack and what you think of the miniatures that are included in it. Thank you so much to my patrons and sponsor, and if you want to support the channel, go check out our Patreon at patreon.com/unicorncompany. So until next time, this is Carrie, signing off. I want to thank all of our patrons who help make this possible. First, at Captain, we have Sarah. And then our lieutenants, Boy in a Box, Gus, Haley, Nathan, and Will. And then our sergeants, BZ Archer, Faz, Steven, and finally our cadets, NB Kaiju, Housemaster Po Ding, Jamie, and Scott. Thank you all so much for supporting the podcast and the channel. You all make this so possible. Also, I do want to mention once again our sponsor and mercenary liaison, FortressMiniaturesAndGames.com.